Section 3 on title and escrow, I mean, understand that we're writing the contract, and these are going to be escrow instructions as well.
Absolutely. And the escrow officer is going to use them to make decisions later.
And so we plug in the title company, and we want their address, and we want their email address as well as their phone for notice purposes. So when we look at title investing, understand that that's an important legal term. And as a real estate agent, we don't want to tell the buyer that, oh, everybody does it this way. It's up to the buyer to make the proper choice.
Would that be legal and tax advice?
It would be.
Oh, are we supposed to do that?
No, not really.
No.
Not really. And that's why, it's actually set up so it says independent legal advice, because, the title companies don't want to give that either. Give that recommendation. But they give you a pamphlet and explain the different options that you have.
Correct.
But understand it's up to the buyer to make the choice.
Because it can have big implications how you take property.
You bet, you bet. And if the buyer is married and they're looking to buy it sole and separate, better make sure you get the spouse
Sign their disclaimer deed. Yep.
To sign off on
All
it.
parties need to know.
Yep.
Title commitment and title insurance are incredibly important. It's where their client is going to see the CC&Rs, the deed restrictions, anything affecting that property on their Schedule B items. And so I think it is important to set up in the beginning that the buyer is going to need to review that title report within 5 days of them getting it. So going over that conversation, letting them know when you get it, you're going to want to review it, and we're going to want to talk to the escrow officer about questions as it comes along.
Absolutely. Schedule B is important.
Schedule B is very important. You can end up with easements, encroachments, many things that is, not always in the valley do we see them, but we do see them all over the state. If there's 10 easements on a property, it can very much affect what I can do with it. So it's a good place to start having that conversation.
Okay, so then we talk about in 3D additional instructions. What jumps out at you there? Standard language?
Standard language jumps out.
This is common stuff, common costs are going to be split. Again, as escrow instructions, the question is, let's not have a check off the box of who's paying whatever.
Correct.
We're going to handle the transaction as it's normally handled. And then we get into tax
prorations, which is always a hard thing to explain.
Sure.
That we're in arrears in this state, and that when you take title to a property, they're going to make sure that the taxes up to the point that you took over will be paid and accounted for, whether it be a credit to the other party or, depending on the time of year, they actually do go pay them.
Right. And the release of earnest money is set up so, okay, we've got the earnest money. If there's a dispute, now it's with the title company.
Right.
The title company gets to decide.
To make that decision. And so as an agent, when we're writing the contract, that's where it becomes so important to make sure that we're completing our clauses, our contingencies, anything that we're doing in here to make it one less step for escrow to have to make decisions. The more we have black and white, if I don't do this, this happens, and then if this happens, I get my money back. Can avoid a lot of arguments with that.
So try as we might to empower the title company to make the decision, they don't always make the decision.
They don't.
Because maybe it's a coin flip, or maybe it's too close to call, or maybe it's up to somebody else, or we need more information. But the contract is set up, and their escrow instructions are set up to, hey, we'll indemnify you. Please make a decision.
Yes.
But it's ultimately up to them as to whether they're going to make that decision or not.
Correct.
The last two paragraphs in the section are about assessments and also assessment liens.
So the community facilities districts,
Sure.
that's a big one.
And it's set up that that's defaulted, that it's going to be prorated as of close of escrow.
Correct.
And a community facility district is not prevalent throughout the entire state. There's actually pockets of it. And it's sort of a concept that was brought over from California. And it's where developers actually are looking for a different method to pay for some
Their entitlements or improvements, absolutely.
Yes. And so they set that up. So
Some of them are on your taxes, some of them aren't. They're all paid a little bit differently.
which could add confusion.
Could add confusion.
Which is why it's set up so it's going to be prorated.
Prorated,
as of close of escrow. And so then the 3G section is set up. Again, you've got your choice of prorated, or if you're going to do it differently, just explain to it differently.
Absolutely.
And those sections also, we're going to have a HOA addendum.
We are.
In the event you are in a homeowners association. And so that's going to have the breakout of those fees as well. So they'll fit together. Make sure you have it.
Yes.
And make sure it's filled out and part of the original contract.
Anytime there's an HOA, you need to submit that. And hopefully the listing agent will have had the first page of it filled out by the seller and attached into your MLS documents.
Sure. And so that, to me, are the highlights of Section 3.
That's the highlights title.